So welcome. Today we're going to talk about strategies for learning and how you as parent or guardian of a students in high school can help your students with time management. Seems like an interesting thing at 14 through 18. Remember that we as the family, the supporting people in our students' lives are the people who are sort of helping them manage their time. And we are going from sort of their managers, hey, now it's time to do your homework. Now it's time to go to practice. Now it's time to, hey, did you brush your teeth or whatever it is, to sort of their mentors. How are they doing these things on their own? How are we helping them make decisions on their own and build the skills that they will need to have as they get through high school and move on to some kind of post-secondary world, either working or going to school or whatever it is, they're going to need these skills. So, so the big question of the day is like, did you ever feel like you're busy all day long, but then you sit back and you think, what did I do all day? That can be where our students are. Remember, their brains are not as formed as ours, not a neuroscientist, but their brains are still developing, and they like to make spontaneous, short decisions. They are very much in the moment. So when you ask your student, what were you thinking? They weren't thinking anything. That's their job, to not be able to think. That's where they are developmentally. So what can we do to help our students sort of manage all of that? Because now we're a couple of weeks into the school year and things are starting to build up, right? So the first thing we need to think about for our students is organization. And we've talked about this a few times in our family shorts, that how are we organizing our students? So do they have a space to work? Do they have all the materials in a place, like in a bag or whatever? Like the next time you go shopping, ask for a bag, whatever your preference is, plastic or paper. Throw all the stuff in that bag and make that just the study bag, right? But then how are they organizing themselves? Do they have a calendar? Are they using like the Google Calendar, Google Drive to stay organized? Do they have all of their documents in one place in the Google Drive? So helping them think about, where can I keep all of my stuff in one place and how can I organize what needs to be done? Remember, it's not just schoolwork that our students are working on. Some of our students have obligations at home. Some of our students are involved in co-curriculars, sports teams, clubs. All of that should be part of, when you're talking about organization, what do they need to do? The other thing around time management that you can really help your students think about is planning their day. Not like, what am I doing every minute of the day, but when do I have classes? Like they always have, at least for first semester, they always have the same classes each day of the week, right? So it's not like making those Monday through Friday classes, but on Google and on your Google Drive, they can make a calendar of all the classes that they have during the day. And they can share that calendar with you if you want it. You don't necessarily need it. But when they're outside of school, when they're outside of class, how are they planning what needs to get done? And how are they making a list of those things? There are people in the world, I'm one of them, who lives by a list. I need to get a list. I think it's because I like to check things off. But once they make a list, they can prioritize what's the most important thing that needs to get done. So once they're in school, like from 8:30 to 3:30, they're in school. That's what they're doing. But then when they come home, what needs to get done in the time they have to get done? And maybe that's making a list of just sort of like taking 5 minutes and making a list of everything that needs to get done. You can use Canvas. Remember yesterday we talked about using Canvas and that column on the right-hand side of Canvas to say upcoming things that are due. Good thing to sit down with your student or just say to your student, make a list of the things that you need to get done, or keep a running list, maybe in the notes section of their tablet or something, of the homework that they know needs to get done. And then when they get home, prioritize that. What is the most important thing that needs to get done and what can get done quickly? And then what's due the soonest? So maybe a quick thing that's due tomorrow that they can get done easily is the first thing they knock off their list. If they're like me and they like to check things off. If they like to really get down in it and they feel freshest when they're first getting their homework done, maybe they prioritize some time for a long-term assignment. But that's the kind of communication and kind of discussion that you can have where your students can talk to you about what needs to get done, and you can then reflect back to them clear expectations for how to spend their time. Remember, you are moving from being the manager, now it's time to do your homework, to the mentor, have you budgeted enough time to do your homework? It's a very different conversation. And you as the manager or the mentor, really the mentor in their lives, has to remember that they're going to slip up. You can't have this conversation once and say, okay, well, we talked about that in August. It's something that's an ongoing part of the conversation with them, those 20-minute discussions that you should have every day with your, not you should only talk to them for 20 minutes, but that intentional conversation that you have with your student around things like time management. Hey, what do you have to get done? How are you planning it? What are the things that you think you need to get done? What are the most important things you're going to try to get done tonight? They can reflect back to you what they think. It's not for you to make that decision. It's for them to start reflecting back to you. I think this is the most important thing. And those guidelines you can talk about are what's the most important, what's the quickest to get done, and what needs to get done like tomorrow. What do you need to get done? And you can talk about the priorities around that. That's a really good way for you to mentor time management in your student. So you can use online tools to break down and make a separate plan if that's what you want to do. Like some students really like to use a paper planner. Some students find it to be cumbersome to go back into Google and do like Google appointments and when is it due, and that's kind of hard. But you can use a task list in Google. You can use like a to-do list with reminders, but there's a lot of input for that. Sometimes it's good to have a visual reminder of what to do. And if you don't want to invest in a calendar, you can take a blank piece of paper, or you can do something on using their tablets, because all of our students have tablets, of just the squares of the week. And when are things due? So they have a visual reminder of what's due. Or you can just take a piece of paper and make it into the squares of the month and the squares of the week and put it up in that space that's dedicated for them to study and sort of review what needs to be done. What are those long-term things? And then they can make a list of what are the short, you don't have to fill in the short-term things on that list, but to help them be reflective about what's being done and be overt about the conversation. This is when you're building those skills with your students. And I know you probably feel like those of you who are parents of freshmen, we did this in last school. It's always a good thing to reinforce. And it's always a good idea to have those reflective conversations with them where they can say back to you, they can be verbalize what they're thinking, because it helps them then put that into place. So when they're talking to you about what their plans are, then that helps them put those into place. Sometimes it's good for a student to just have a weekly schedule. Sometimes it's good for a student to have a daily schedule, but not like down to the 15-minute increment. Like, I'm going to do homework for this, and then how are you planning out your time for homework can be a checklist, right? I got to do stuff in, the following 3 classes. And then that prioritization. There's a lot of theories on like, what can you get done in 5 minutes? Get that done first. Or what are those short, quick hit kinds of things, get done quickly, and then go on to the longer term things. But you have to have that conversation with your student about what works for them. Do you do those quick hits in between longer terms? Here's the other thing, I can't stress enough, build in breaks. Build in breaks for them to get up, walk around the house, be physical, do something that regenerates that oxygen to their brain, and drink water. Is really important for them for their study success and study habits, to build in breaks where there's some physical activity and drink water. Then the way you communicate with your student is really important. It goes beyond, did you get your homework done? And sometimes it's, what learning targets are you working on? Really a good idea for you to familiarize yourself with the kinds of language that is used at Stevenson, so that your student understands that you understand what is happening in school. So learning targets are sort of the skills that are being worked on. So, hey, what are the learning targets you're working on? Or what's the subject area? What was the most interesting thing about class? And then things like, do you have everything you need to get your work done? That lets them know you're not doing the work for them, but you're there to assist them. Or how do you feel about getting your work done? What's going on? And let them talk to you, because you can't do the studying for your students, but you can talk to them about what's coming up in classes. You can talk to them about what their plan is and ask them about their strategies, and let them figure out those strategies on their own. You can always stay on top of what's going on in the interactive report card, and we will talk about that tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the interactive report card, what you can see on the interactive report card as a family member, and then what you can see in Infinite Campus as a family member. And the interactive report card is where their scores and how well they're meeting their learning targets are. And Infinite Campus is a completely different thing. That's attendance. So you can also look on the family calendar and see what's coming up, so you understand where there may be more or less stress at certain times, like when we're getting toward the beginning of the end of a 6-week grading period. That might be a little bit more stressful for your student if they like to hold off on things. And maybe that's a time that you don't plan a lot of big family things, because there may be the end of assignments, end of a grading term, responsibilities for them. Another thing that you can do for your team and your student is to remember that you may have had the conversation around goal setting for your student. Like, well, what do you think you might want to do this semester? Remember that when you set those really long-term goals, it's hard for your student to maintain and be successful at a really long-term goal, because things happen. Imagine, like those of us, it's like, what do they say about New Year's resolutions? They're all dead in 30 days. People have blown them in 30 days, but they may not get everything perfectly right away. So what you can do is keep everything in perspective for your team. If they don't do well on their first quiz or their first assignment, fine. What can you do to meet those learning requirements? Meet with the teacher, help your student facilitate that communication. Sit next to them as they write an email to their teacher to say, hey, I didn't get what was going on. Can you help me? Or help them understand how to access the tutors in the East or West ILC for maybe a little bit of support in meeting those learning targets. Maybe sit down with them once a week and plan it into your schedule, into your conversations around, how well are you doing? What's going on in school? How well do you feel you did this week? It's not like this daily thing, because then we don't want to perseverate on, oh, what if they didn't meet their goals? We want to help them understand that it's okay to learn from where you didn't meet the goals that you had for yourself, and then find strategies that work for you to help you meet the goals you want, or make more realistic goals for yourself, which is not to say backing down on them, but not to push yourself to the point where you're not doing what's supportive of you as a student to meet your goals. It's where you can help your student be persistent and find ways to help them learn from any kind of mistakes or missteps that they've had. Finally, it's really important for you as support family part in the family partnership realm of Stevenson to know who your student's counselor is. So if you have not attended a family virtual open house, there's one tonight at 7 p.m. It's all virtual. I've heard a number of families say that they have listened to open house because it's virtual and you don't have to have your screen doesn't have to be on with their students, so that they can then, you're muted anyway, they can then listen to what the teacher is saying, and your student hears that it's important to you, and that makes a big difference in student achievement. When your student sees that you find the time to attend like school meetings, like open house, they know that you are placing an importance on their education, and it makes a big difference in the way they think about themselves as students. You can also say, hey, wow, I really like that teacher. I remember going to, when people used to go to in-person open houses, and they would say, as they were coming out of classrooms, I wish I could have been in here with my student, because I wish I could have said, wow, did you know that was what your teacher was like? And now is the perfect opportunity for you to sit with your student and be like, I can't believe that's your math teacher, or how cool that you have that person for political science or computer science or English class. So if your student's email is not working, we couldn't log the open house Zoom meetings last week. Okay, try the Smart Desk first, and try the Smart Desk first, Eric, and stay on with me after the end of this, and I will put in the chat a couple of emails for you to work on to see that email is working, so that you can get the login information for open house. So the last thing is attend open house and get to know your student's counselor. Those of you who are parents of freshmen or guardians of freshmen, your counselor stays with you for the 4 years that your student is in at Stevenson High School. I can think of no better way for you to partner and support your students' time at Stevenson than to partner and get to know their counselor, so they know who you are. There's a lot that happens in the 4 years that your student comes from freshman year to senior year, and to have that sort of partnership, ongoing conversation with a professional at Stevenson High School is so extraordinarily valuable for you, to have someone that you can reach out to and say, hey, this is what's going on, or hey, this is what's happening with my student, or can you help me with this with my student, is so very, very valuable. So open house tonight, 7 p.m., and having those open conversations with your students. As I said before, tomorrow we're going to talk about staying connected to the learning, and we're going to go through the interactive report card and Infinite Campus. I'll also do a quick review of Canvas for those of you who weren't there, because it's nuanced. What can you see in Canvas? What can you see in the interactive report card, or as we call it, the IRC? And what can you see in Infinite Campus, or what we say, I see? So that's the discussion for today. The parent that was going to stay on, please stay on with me. And